This is Ryan.
And I'm John.
Welcome to preview season.
Oath of the Gatewatch.
All right. Green.
All right. Green.
Green.
Yeah. Everyone's favorite color.
All right, we're going to take a look at some of our top picks for Oath of the Gatewatch. I'll be looking at Constructed.
I am going to be taking a look at how the green cards fare in Limited. And as you can tell, I'm super pumped about it.
Well, so you have that to look forward to, audience.
Which is nice.
Let's start with something a little more, cheery.
Sure.
Seed Guardian. He's one of my picks for Constructed. I like this guy. I almost would say that he's strictly better than a Giant Spider, but since he's technically got a different casting cost, I guess that's not really a fair comparison, and I would hate to upset the internet on a technicality. So
not strictly better, Ryan.
Not strictly better. He's got a G in this. Okay. So what does that extra mana...
What does that get us, Ryan?
What does it get you? Well, it gets you an extra point of power, which is always nice.
Nice.
And another body when he dies, which is amazing.
Yeah.
I love cards that effectively force your opponent to spend 2 cards to kill, right? So things like even Doomed Traveler or Thragtusk made me kind of pause and reevaluate card value, a couple years ago when those were a thing. This guy carries on in fine tradition. I like him.
Yeah, this guy, there are a certain amount of cards that are legal and standard that allow you to mill yourself, and Seed Guardian could be really good with them, or just the natural progression of a game. He could just be really good against a deck that's really aggressive and trying to get in there. These cards always give aggressive deck fits. Yeah. So, yeah. I'm looking forward to this guy seeing some play.
Yeah, I like it too. I just want my opponent, turn 3, they play Sky Spawner, and they think, haha, I'm going up top. And then turn 4, I go, nope, no, you're not. Reach. All right. Up next, Embodiment of Insight.
Woo!
All right, so it turns out this guy's not part of a full cycle. He just has a twin in red.
Oh, got us.
And a long-lost cousin in blue who's stuck back on Tarkir. But I think this guy's the best one out of the bunch, right? So granting vigilance to land creatures offsets their biggest drawback.
It's huge.
Which is not being able for them to be both a mana source and do combat in the same turn. He lets you get around that.
Yeah, you don't have to pick anymore.
Right.
You get both.
You can attack, block, and then still use them for an instant or flash creature or something else on your opponent's end step. So
you get your meat and your pudding.
That's right. Yeah, I'll allow it. That's fine. I think he'd go pair well with Blue, who's already got Halimar Tidecaller and Embodiment of Spring, which seems to have maybe been a plant by R&D to kind of set up this sort of build, a nice little blue-green lands matter kind of a Awoken combo, we'll call it.
Sure.
All right. So also going right into that deck would be my next card, Sylvan Advocate, right?
Yeah.
So I like that he's an oversized, he's oversized for your 2 mana, right? And then he gets bigger as the game goes on. Vigilance feels a little weird, just kind of tacked on him, but it means that he can be a reasonable attacker and then still be a really great blocker, too. I'd also, here's what I want to do. I want to attack with him as a 2/3 when I only have 5 lands in play.
Ooh, and then
I want my opponent to think that I can't do math. And then I want to use like a Targus Command and play a land at instant speed, and then suddenly he's like a 4/5 after they've committed to a terrible block. And I just
like where your head's at.
Eat something. So
Natural Connection.
Yeah,
I mean that could be a total limited blowout.
There's a couple of ways to kind of get those lands in at instant speed that if they're not ready for him, he just boom.
That's hilarious.
All right, last one I've got on my short list here, World Breaker. So this is another one that we covered in preview.
Totally.
I can't get over how good he looks though. I mean, I think he's pretty much an upgrade over Gaea's Revenge in green, in terms of big resilient finishers.
I have been beaten by that card in duels so many times.
Yes. So Revenge can't be countered, but Breaker gets to blow up something just on being cast. So even if they do counter it, you still get some value out of it, right? And then you can just bring them back from your graveyard and keep doing it over and over, even if they keep countering it or killing them off. So he's huge. He can swat down flyers. He's exactly what you want a 7-mana creature to be. And once, we keep saying, when things kind of rotate out and the metagame kind of shifts and, sets change, standard changes, I expect this guy will be doing his job kind of going forward.
Totally. Yeah. I'm just going to reiterate what I said then. The control decks of the current standard are way too proactive for this guy to be good. But once you have a proper control deck, one that kind of doesn't put out spells very, it's not trying to win as soon as possible. You can just sit back on World Breaker and just cast it every turn and eventually just win the game. Your opponent can't win a long game against this card. It just doesn't work. Right. The math doesn't, You're not winning a long game against this card. It's great. Okay, so I really want World Breaker to be good. We're going to get into limited cards. So I'm just going to go over my top 5 commons for green because I don't want to talk about uncommons or rares because it's not a given that you're going to see all of them in a given draft, and it's way more important for you to just have a grip on what the commons do before you try to evaluate everything else. So let's start at number 5, Pulse of Murasa. Now, once upon a time, there was a card called Regrowth, and it was considered amazing, and that was a very long time ago. These days, the effect return target creature or return target card from your graveyard to your hand it's pretty weak. Spending a card to do that is not very good, especially in limited, where it's an inconsistent effect. You don't really know what you're going to be getting back. You're hoping that you've got something good in your graveyard to get back, but most of the time it's just not going to be there. But they always try and do this. They always try to plant some regrowth like effect at uncommon that usually ends up being in your green draft decks that are maybe a little short on playables. But this seems like the type of card that does enough on top of being a regrowth to warrant its inclusion in a deck. And 6 life is a lot of life.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we've got Giant Mantis's little brother. We've got Netcaster Spider. So unlike Giant Mantis, this guy trades for Ghostly Sentinel and straight up kills Courier Griffin, just picks it off in combat. That is hugely relevant. As it stands, decks with lots of flyers, like a really high density of flyers, they are usually the ones that prey on green decks the most. So having stuff like Netcaster Spider is going to be important. All right, next up, we've got a 3/1 for 4, which is pretty miserable on its face. Saddleback Lagac? Lagac? Lagac. I don't know how to pronounce that word.
Saddleback Lagac. I think it rhymes.
Saddleback Lagac. Did you have Gac as a kid?
Yeah.
The green stuff.
Yeah.
It comes in a jar and you just play with it. Yeah.
Right. Silly putty for rich kids. Yeah. I know.
Saddleback Lagac. So, oh boy. It's a 3/1 for 4, which is kind of bad on its face, but as a green deck, you're going to have enough random ground critters kind of floating around the battlefield that Saddleback Lagac can actually be a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
It opens you up to possible attacks that just wouldn't be possible without it, and it comes with its own presence, a 3/1 kind of attached to it. So, I really like it.
Yeah.
Tajuru Pathwarden. Now, the first limited I ever played was 8th edition, which they just recently had on Magic Online for drafting, and it was just as miserable as I remember it being, but that's a whole other story. Sure. But Spined Worm was in that set. It's a 5/4 for 5, and this is Spined Worm on steroids.
Yeah.
I kind of unironically love blatant power creep like this. Like, Vigilance and Trample are huge deals in racing situations, and the fact that it's an ally is just kind of gravy on the cake.
What?
Okay. So don't really get hung up on the practicality of gravy on a cake, because at the end of the day, we're talking about the green cards here. So like, don't worry about it.
Not appetizing to begin with.
Thank you. That was excellent. Stalking Drone I have as the best green common. It's just a grizzly bear, but if you have colorless mana, if you have access to any colorless mana at all, you can give it kind of Tarmogoyf-esque stats, which is pretty good. It seems like a relatively low cost to be able to get in there with a card that you didn't have to invest much mana in to begin with. Yep. It's really versatile, and you don't really see that all too much in green. So yeah, I really like that. I like that effect.
I like on this one that you could pay that cost by sacking a Scion token, and green has a lot of ways to make those. Some even at like instant speed. Even.
Yes, that's true.
So
that is a good point.
If you got a few Scions kind of laying around, they're going to be really afraid to attack into this thing, because you could use a token and this to block, and then sack the token, and then pump him up, and just kind of change combat math on the fly. So yeah, there's a lot of flexibility in that. Don't be deceived by how simple it looks. Like, oh, just pay some mana, he gets bigger. That really does change things in combat. So.
Yeah, it's just another thing for your opponent to have to think about, and a great way to kind of win in a board stalled game is to have a lot of fiddly effects that your opponent has to keep track of. Yeah. So I wouldn't underestimate this card. Overall, though, Man. I mean, we had Saddleback Lagac. Man,
Yeah.
Someone's got to tell us how to pronounce that card.
I'll make some calls.
Okay, great. But yeah, if that is showing up on like the top 5 commons, things are not going
good.
well.
So I asked you in the last episode if green was going to maybe start climbing up the ladder here and maybe even overtake red for placement in the color rankings. How do you feel about it now that we've looked at green? Where do they stand?
Red was not great, but green just didn't make up enough ground. I mean, I don't think it made up any ground.
Yeah.
The best card is a grizzly bear. I mean, I'm really excited to play with some of these cards in Constructed. World Breaker, sure. I'm pre-ordering a set of World Breaker. I think that card's going to be insane.
Okay.
But I plan on avoiding this in draft like the plague.
All right. Well, you mentioned pre-orders. If there's other stuff you're looking to pre-order, make sure you hop on over to TCGplayer.com.
Sylvan Advocate actually seems really good, too. Right. I think I'm going to be pre-ordering some of that. Good. Sylvan Advocate, I really like that card.
Glad you're coming around on him. I like him. All right. Like I said, visit TCGplayer.com for all of your pre-order needs. We hope you enjoyed watching. We hope you're ready for the pre-release. It's coming up, so get ready for that. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.